Well, it looks like after 20 years and a lot of triangle-shaped cars with funny names, somebody finally found a way to make a hybrid vehicle seriously appealing? And it's Ford. And it's the new F-150. What's going on, everyone? I'm Wayne Grayson, and you're watching Equipment World. During a live-streamed event Thursday night, Ford finally took the wraps off of a new generation of its best-selling pickup truck. And folks, the 2021 F-150 is a very big update. There's some new technology features, including a new infotainment system and most notably hands-free driving. There's a new redesigned interior, a refreshed and more aerodynamic exterior design with a frankly unreasonable amount of grille designs. There's even a new power generation option that will allow you to leave your generator at home. And you know what? All of that is just window dressing to the real big news here. And that is this: the 2021 Ford F-150 for the first time will be available with what appears to be an absolute monster of a hybrid powertrain that Ford says will deliver class-leading power in more ways than one. So strap in, folks. There's a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. Now, all of this talk about a new hybrid powertrain aside, we can't really talk about what's under the hood until we address the new hood itself. So let's start with the new look of the 2021 F-150. Ford says it has redesigned every single panel of this truck's body, and personally, I think it shows. Now, even when I had only seen this overhead shot that Ford was using to tease this truck's reveal, I had a feeling that we were gonna get something a little bit sportier looking, a little bit more aggressive, maybe even something that had a resemblance to the F-150 Raptor. And ultimately, I would say that that is kind of what we got. But ultimately, there's a really good mix of Ford's truck design language in this new F-150. From certain angles, especially head-on like this one, I think that you see a bit of the 2020 Super Duty design influence. From 3/4, I see a bit of the Ranger, and the profile of the truck is really what we've come to expect since the 2015 model that introduced the new aluminum body. But if you were already kind of fond of the overall look of this truck, I wouldn't worry too much. From the profile, it's essentially the same truck. Ford didn't make too many tweaks that make this just a radically different looking truck, kind of like how we saw Chevy do with the Silverado series that was controversial to say the least. Instead, a lot of Ford's changes kind of came on the front end and kind of like that first impression that you get of the truck. Of course, a lot of your impression of this truck is going to depend on what version of the front end you're looking at, and apparently that will vary greatly. That's because Ford is offering 11, yes, 11 grille options on the 2021 F-150. And here's the thing, these grille options won't be trim dependent. Certain grilles won't only be offered on certain trim levels. Ford says all 11 of these grilles will be offered across the entire lineup. Flanking that football team's worth of new grille options are a pair of new headlamps with a new design. And I want to kind of take a second and really kind of focus on this new headlamp design, because I always find that headlamps can really impact a great deal of how we feel about the look of a truck. Now, back in the 2009 model year, Ford introduced a headlamp design that it would really carry on for the better part of the next decade. In 2015, they kind of started pulling elements of the grille into it, and it started giving it a shape resembling an F, maybe even as a shout out to the F-Series model name. In the model years since, Ford has kind of finessed that design a little bit. They've made it a little bit less boxy by doing a better job of integrating that headlamp design into the overall look of the grille itself. This new design, though, found on the 2021 F-150 is on more even footing with the rest of the grille. It has a taller appearance, it's much less angular. The F inspiration is still there and is arguably now more apparent thanks to a new LED lighting accent that runs around the outer and top edges of the lamps themselves. The outside edge of the lamps still have a slight angle to them in following the slope of the fender, but it's much more subtle now. Plus, the lamps themselves have that upright stack design that I'm always happy to see. Ford has also gone with a new power dome hood design and wrap-around fenders, and that to me is really where you start to see the Raptor influence and that Raptor look take effect in this new design of the F-150. The fenders themselves are also a bit higher off the ground now, and the cumulative effect is that they just give this truck a more distinct and a more aggressive footing. And though this new truck is still the same 79.9 inch width as the 2020 model, it definitely has a wider look to it thanks to those new fenders and the fact that Ford is now equipping this truck with larger diameter tires that are pulled out actually 3/4 of an inch wider than before. So the actual wider wheelbase on the F-150 will remain at this point an exclusive to that F-150 Raptor, but Ford was doing its best to kind of give the regular F-150 that more aggressive, wider stance, and it honestly, they delivered on that. Another important element to this new F-150 design is aerodynamics, and actually Ford says this is the most aerodynamic F-150 they've built to date. Now, beyond the new geometry of the truck's cab and its tailgate, Ford has also done quite a bit of work on the front end aerodynamics, and that is through the implementation of new active grille shutters and an automatically deploying active air dam below the front bumper. We've actually seen these features in the half-ton segment before. Ram actually introduced them on the 2019 redesign of the Ram 1500. Now, here's how they work, and we're going to use a little bit of footage that Ram provided to us back in 2019 to illustrate this, but the same principle applies. Essentially, the grille shutters work to reduce wind resistance by pulling air into and through the grille of the truck rather than allowing it to rush over the hood, and the air dam is located beneath the truck's front bumper, and that will typically deploy by swinging down below the bumper at a certain speed. Usually that's around 40 miles per hour. On the Ram trucks, it's at 35, but Ford has not specified at what speed that dam drops down. The air dam also reduces wind resistance by guiding air beneath the truck rather than just allowing it to run into the bumper. One final note on the exterior of the 2021 F-150, Ford has implemented new full-length running boards. These new running boards not only extend further down the body of the truck, now allowing you to hop up and reach into the bed from them, they also automatically lower whenever you approach the truck with the key fob in your pocket. And if you don't have the key fob, Ford thought of that too. In a design that kind of reminds me of the hands-free tailgate found on the Ford Explorer, the new running boards have a kick switch underneath that allow you to manually activate their drop down with a kick. Okay, now that we've covered the new look of this truck, let's dig into powertrains. 6 different engines will be offered on the 2021 Ford F-150. That is up 1 from the 5 offered last year because of that new hybrid powertrain that we mentioned earlier. And if 6 engines sounds like a lot to choose from, the good news is that you won't have to worry about which transmission to pair with these engines, because Ford is now down to offering one option, a 10-speed, after dropping the 6-speed that it offered with last year's model. So for 2021, no matter which engine you choose, it will come paired to a 10-speed automatic transmission. But back to the engines. Ford hasn't yet released any official horsepower, torque, towing, or payload ratings as of yet, so all we know right now are the engines that will be offered. We don't know how much power they'll produce on this new 2021 model. We would imagine it'll be close to what was offered on the 2020 model, but there are so many changes. Not only, the aerodynamic changes that we mentioned earlier are gonna be a big factor, but when you factor in a hybrid powertrain, those numbers could shift quite a bit. Now, the engines available on the 2021 model that are returning from 2020 are, of course, the pair of EcoBoost engines, the 2.7 liter and the 3.5 liter V6s, the 3.3 liter non-EcoBoost V6 and the 5 liter V8, and of course the new 3 liter Power Stroke diesel V6. And that brings us to the headliner of this all new class of F-150 powertrain options, the new hybrid. And since this is a completely new powertrain option, Ford even came up with a new name for it, and that is PowerBoost. A nice little mashup between its Power Stroke and EcoBoost names. At the core of this new hybrid powertrain is the 3.5 liter PowerBoost V6. Paired to that engine is the 10-speed transmission that we mentioned earlier. Integrated into that transmission is a 35 kilowatt electric motor, and the final component of this new hybrid powertrain is a 1.5 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery. And if you're worried about this battery potentially bulging into the bed or taking away any cargo space in the cab, don't worry about that, because Ford has kind of handled this battery in a similar way that it handled the battery in the new hybrid Ford Explorer. They've basically stuffed it underneath the body of the truck so it doesn't actually impede on the bed or the cargo space inside the cab. And if you're wondering how the battery gets charged, this is not a plug-in hybrid. You won't have to plug it in and fuel it up. Instead, the electric motor takes care of recharging the battery through braking energy. The other interesting thing about this hybrid powertrain is that based on the specs, it looks like it's built off of the 3.5 liter EcoBoost engine. Now, just like the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, the 3.5 liter PowerBoost is a twin turbocharged and intercooled 60-degree V6 with overhead cams, and it has the same compression ratio of 10.5 to 1. Now, Ford isn't drawing this connection between the EcoBoost and the PowerBoost engines explicitly. This is just me looking at a spec sheet with curiosity and noticing similarities, but it is hard to imagine that they would manufacture a whole new engine just for this new hybrid powertrain, especially given when fuel economy is going to be a very important part of this powertrain, and they've already reached a certain level of fuel economy with that EcoBoost lineup. Now, speaking of fuel economy, that is usually the biggest upside to a hybrid powertrain, and from the looks of it, Ford is going to deliver there as well with this new PowerBoost platform. Again, Ford has not released any official ratings on the 2021 F-150, but as of right now, they say that they expect the EPA to give it an estimated range of 700 miles per tank of gas. Now, if you divide that 700-mile range by the 30.6-gallon fuel tank that will be found on the PowerBoost configuration of this new F-150, you get roughly 23 miles per gallon. Not exactly groundbreaking. But let's say that 23 miles per gallon actually ends up being the official combined MPG rating that the EPA hands down for this truck. Well, that would actually slot it between Ford's two highest performers in terms of fuel economy in its half-ton trucks, and that is the 2.7-liter EcoBoost, which gives you 22 miles per gallon, and the 3-liter Power Stroke diesel, which provides 24 miles per gallon combined. But here's the thing, while fuel economy is nice, Ford knows that what truck customers care most about is power. So it's not a big surprise that the biggest draw in this new PowerBoost hybrid powertrain is power. I mean, we just said power like 15 times in one sentence. Like we said earlier, Ford has not released any official SAE ratings for the 2021 F-150 in terms of horsepower, torque, payload, or towing. But they do say that by the time the 3.5-liter PowerBoost variant hits the market, they expect this hybrid half-ton truck to have the most horsepower and the most torque in that size class. They also expect this truck to offer more than 12,000 pounds in towing capacity. Now, that figure is not going to be enough to become the new champion of half-ton towing. That currently belongs to Chevy, where the Silverado 1500 equipped with the V8 actually gives you 13,400 pounds of towing, but it's still an impressive number for a first-generation hybrid powertrain on a pickup. Now, anytime we're talking about a powertrain with a battery of any kind, we obviously have to mention the impacts of cold weather, payload, or towing, and what those might do to any kind of range that this truck might have. Now, Ford is saying right now that this truck will have 700 miles of range when you equip it with this hybrid engine. Now, Ford is also not giving any kind of specifics on what the impacts of cold weather and payload might be, other than to say that this battery is rated for sustained work in both extreme hot and cold temperatures and under heavy load. Now, given the fact that they're not exactly shying away from discussing this hybrid truck's capability, I mean, they're touting that 12,000 pound towing capacity. They're saying it's going to have the most horsepower. They did omit payload, which I do think is kind of an interesting omission given this discussion around impact of range. But given that they're not kind of shying away from those numbers in general, it does lead me to believe that this truck likely will hold up pretty well with that 700-mile range number, even under heavy load. But you'd have to imagine if you're going to be towing 12,000 pounds behind you, that 700-mile range is going to drop. Now, the impact that cold weather or hot weather is going to have, we'll have to see that at a later date. Now, we're done with the powertrains, but we're not quite done with power. So let's turn our attention now to the F-150's capability in power generation. For a lot of guys in the trades, lugging around a generator in the back of their pickup is just a fact of life, but Ford is looking to change that with a new feature they're calling Pro Power Onboard, and it's essentially a generator that is integrated into the truck. With this feature, you're going to be able to access power through outlets both in the cabin and up to 4 120-volt 20-amp outlets in the bed. Now, if you opt for the PowerBoost V6 Hybrid, you're going to get Pro Power Onboard as a standard feature in a 2.4 kilowatt configuration. In one example given by Ford, they say that the 2.4 kilowatt version is enough for an 8-inch compound miter saw, a 1/2 horsepower air compressor, and a battery charger to be plugged in and running at the same time. In another example, they say it's enough for a jackhammer and a compact concrete mixer. And if you need even more power through these outlets, you can upgrade Pro Power Onboard to a 7.2 kilowatt configuration. That's enough power, according to Ford, to power a whole crew's worth of hand tools. In one example, Ford says the 7.2 kilowatt is enough to power a 120-volt plasma cutter, a 120-volt TIG welder, a chop saw, a 1.5 horsepower air compressor, an angle grinder, and a work light at the same time. Now, how long are you going to be able to run your tools and devices for when connected to ProPower? Well, on the 2.4 kilowatt version, Ford says you can expect 85 hours of continuous runtime when the truck has a full tank of gas. On the 7.2 kilowatt version, runtime drops to around 32 hours of runtime on a full tank. The other important note on this 2.4 kilowatt and the 7.2 kilowatt versions is that these are only available on the PowerBoost Hybrid configuration. Now, let's say you don't want the PowerBoost Hybrid engine, but you do want ProPower on board. Well, Ford says if you're going to equip your truck with the 2.7 liter or the 3.5 liter EcoBoost engines or the 5 liter V8, they will let you equip it with a 2 kilowatt version of ProPower on board. Ford says that's still enough power to power your game day tailgate or a couple of power tools. While we're on the subject of tools and working from the tailgate, let's focus on a couple of new bed and tailgate focused features that Ford has introduced on the 2021 F-150. Ford says the entire 2021 lineup will feature new cleats mounted to the sides of the tailgate to act as tie-down locations for extra long items in the bed. Plus, new clamp pockets have been built into the tailgate of every truck for holding down materials. You'll also be able to opt for a new tailgate work surface that adds little touches like integrated rulers, a tablet holder, cup holder, pencil holder, really lots of holders to the surface of the tailgate. There's several changes and a couple of really interesting new interior features found on the 2021 F-150. So let's turn our attention to the inside of this truck, which Ford says it has completely redesigned. Now, the most apparent feature inside the cab of this truck is the all-new 12-inch center screen with an all-new version of Ford's Sync operating system called Sync 4. Beyond just being larger than past screens, and the 8-inch display that comes standard on this truck, the 12-inch display also features split screen capability for using multiple apps at once. Among those new Sync 4 features, and probably the one that I'm most excited about, is the ability to wirelessly connect to both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Goodbye Lightning cable. But there's also another 12-inch screen that you'll be able to spec this truck out with, and that is the new 12-inch digital gauge cluster that essentially replaces the entire space in front of the steering wheel with a screen. Ford has even worked up a set of graphics and animations that correspond to driving modes, off-road data, and turn-by-turn navigation. Another cool new feature to this interior is something Ford is calling Work Surface. It's available on the XL through the limited trims, and it allows the center console to fold completely flat for working on a laptop or signing documents. They've even designed a cool new console shifter that folds and stows away completely just for this feature. And there's also good news for those who sleep in their truck, and maybe some inspiration for others to start sleeping in their truck, and that is the new Max Recline seats. Ford says this new seat design folds all the way flat, nearly 180 degrees, but it's not just a simple recliner. It actually involves a bit of seat origami to achieve because the bottom cushion of the seat actually rises up to meet the back cushion to form that neatly flat surface. Plus, you can even rotate the upper backrest for dialing in an even more comfortable nap. A couple of other cool new interior features include lockable fold flat rear storage, essentially a vault that extends the width of the rear seats, and optional zone lighting that let you, through Sync 4, turn on and off individual sections of exterior lights, giving you kind of better control over lighting whatever it is you're doing outside. And we're gonna wrap things up on the tech and connectivity side of things, and maybe one of the most anticipated tech updates that Ford is bringing to the 2021 F-150 is over-the-air updates. Now, this is gonna make it the first full-size pickup to offer over-the-air updates, and Ford says that these are bumper-to-bumper updates that will install in just 2 minutes. And for updates that are gonna take a little bit longer to install, Ford says you can actually schedule these to occur later in the day, rather than having to stop whatever you're doing for the truck to update. The 2021 F-150 also features Ford's Copilot 360 2.0 suite of driver assist features. But the biggest new driver assist feature found on the 2021 F-150 by far is hands-free driving. Ford is calling this feature Active Drive Assist, and the automaker says that it has been tested on more than 100,000 miles of divided highways across the 50 US states and Canada. First, before you can use this feature, a camera system in front of you that tracks both head position and eye gaze is going to check in and make sure that you're actually paying attention to the road. Now, once you've activated the feature and the system is satisfied that you're not planning on taking a nap in one of those sweet, sweet Max Recline seats, You can take your hands off the wheel and the system will steer for you. One final new driver assist feature on the new F-150 is intersection assist, which can detect oncoming traffic while you're making a left turn. Whew, so that will wrap it up on the all-new 2021 Ford F-150. Hopefully we've given you an in-depth look on everything new on this new pickup, and there is a lot, from that hybrid powertrain to the new tech options to hands-free driving to that new exterior design. But we want to know what you guys are thinking. Let us know what you think of the new 2021 F-150 in the comments below. And if you liked this video or found the information in it useful in any kind of way, please do us a favor and hit the like button below. It really helps our channel out. And if you want more videos on the latest in trucks, construction equipment, gear, and more, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you're getting up-to-the-minute alerts whenever we drop a new video. Thank you so much again for watching. We really appreciate your time, and we will see you next time.